Hello, this is Cho of the Shiny Colors Discord. Welcome to another episode of the Shiny Review. Today we have 3 new cards to talk about. A new Produce SSR for Kogane, Support SSR for Rinze, and a Produce SR for Asahi. Keep in mind that Kogane and Rinze are limited. They may return again. Keep in mind, of course, that Kogane and Rinze are limited. They may return again in the future, but that might not be for a while. So pull now if you're interested in them. Starting things off, we have Kogane. I'll say it right now before we dig into the meat of the review. Kogane 6 is good, but kinda conflicting to use. She's another of the incredibly rare circumstances of a limited SSR who has 2 completely different functions depending on if she's at 0 star or 4 star, which is fascinating. Initially, she's an interest down generator with AoE, alongside some healing, and she evolves into a mental self-cut that introduces a new scaling type that's also AoE. Once maxed out, her playstyle also deviates greatly from the typical Dance Antika playstyle right now, as her appeal gimmick is that Kogane pays 30% of your current mental, and you receive a dance buff dependent on how much health you actually spent when using that appeal. The scaling works as listed here. If you pay less than 500 mental, you only receive a 4% buff. If you pay roughly 625 mental, it's a 50% buff, 750 mental is 100%, 875 mental is around 150%, and if you pay over 1000 mental, you receive a 200% dance buff. It's a very interesting type of buff for sure, since it's the first we've seen of it. It's a little weird for teams that focus on Uika 3 or not equal. They may be a little bit in distress. Kogane's roles are Healer, Interest Down, Attack All, and Health Cut, and I moderately to highly recommend pulling for Kogane. Kogane's initial skill is a Dance 2.0 appeal that attacks all judges, lowers their interest by 40% for 1 turn, and applies a mental 10% heal. This links into a Dance 1.8 appeal that hits all judges. At max, she gets a Dance 3.5 that hits all judges, reduces your mental by 30%, or rather your current mental by 30%, and then raises your dance by anywhere from 4 to 200% up for 3 turns based on how much mental you lost, and links into that same Dance 1.8 appeal that hits all judges. Her 1-star passive is a Dance 50% up that only requires Kogane on your team, and it has a 30% chance to activate 3 times. The 2-star passive is a Dance 75% up that requires your maximum mental to be over 3400. This has a 30% chance to activate 3 times, and this also unlocks a Dance Mental plus 50 uncap. At 3 stars, she gets an additional Dance Mental plus 50 uncap and a Dance plus 150 uncap. At 4 stars, her passive is a Dance 150% up that requires your maximum mental to be over 3400, but your current mental to be below 30%. This has a 40% chance to activate twice. Her memory appeal, once maxed out, is a Dance 2.0 that links into a Dance 3.0. For the support recommendations, Antika continue to have very good dance supports for cards like Kogane, and you can even splash in cards like Asahi or Natsuha for SP generation. There's been a discussion as to whether Potato Mamimi or Wanderlust Mamimi are better, so adjust appropriately depending on which playstyle you prefer. If you like attention down, then Potato Mamimi. If you're more about attention up, then Wanderlust Mamimi. For the alternatives, of course, Wanderlust is still a fantastic option for dance, and the same goes for Kiriko or Halloween Yuika. Though Halloween Yuika's playstyle doesn't quite come into play here, it's mostly for the masteries. Sakuya doesn't have a great alternative for dance, so you may opt to use cards like Rinze or Chiyoko when paired with the dance Natsuha. As for team recommendations, these are both based on the stream showed off by Takayama. The first team opts for Kogane as the center and focuses on actually building more mental so that Kogane's turn 1 appeal can reduce the necessary health for maximum dance buffing. From there, you can play a bit more of a defensive game of Interest Down and Melancholy till it's time for the memory appeal. The secondary team, which focuses a little more on Kiriko as well as Yuika, also utilizes Promessa Sakuya for pure defense, since she is still AoE Interest Down. So realistically, Kogane and Sakuya play the defensive role while building up damage, at least for not equal Yuika. Not equal Yuika, of course, is the win condition of the build, so ideally by turn 3, thanks to some Promessa stall, you may be able to nuke out all the judges if your health falls low enough. Do keep in mind that this means that most of Kogane's passives will probably not be on the table, as your health bar is probably not going to be around 3400 if you want to make better use of Uika 3. Overall, Kogane as a center earns anywhere from an A+ to a SS-. I'm a little mixed solely because a 5.0 appeal by itself doesn't seem so crazy when other teams have had slightly better double appeal memories. However, it works out perfectly fine with Kogane because of how you'll ideally be sitting on a plethora of dance buffs with the build. Depending on how well you can utilize supports like Onsen Kiriko, Wanderlust, or Potato Amimi, as well as Kogane's passives in general, the memory appeal either rises or falls in its value depending on how well you're able to utilize those buffs. As a unit, however, she's kind of weird. I would say that she's like an A+ to an S, maybe a little higher just because of the interest down for a turn. As mentioned at the beginning, Kogane in a vacuum is a really great card for Dance Antika. It's when you begin to think about how to use her with other powerhouse dance cards like Not Equal Yuika where things get a little strange. In a sense, Kogane is the mid-game card rather than end-game card, which is what a lot of limiteds usually try to be. She's a great card to pick up, especially if you want to start running Antika. Funny enough, she also feels like a card that's really built for the newest game mode, Fest Tours, because of the emphasis on slightly more defensive play, being able to heal, as well as the interesting kind of damage cut that works really well with buffing to just take care of that mode in general. Next up, we have Rinze. Acting as the saving grace for vocal players that missed Morning Glory Jury, Gyudon Rinze is a powerful SP generator with the improved version of Tension Mastery, along with stamina support for both the vocal room and in general. While making a vocal-focused team with 2 dance tokens in Hokago can be kinda rough, Rinze absolutely becomes much more useful than New Year's Rinze, especially without the proper jury. Alongside the jury, it's even crazier. She's also our first limited duet support, who guarantees a Rinze token will always appear as opposed to the random token that we saw with Kaho and Chiyoko, so this makes her powerful as a setup option once you get her to 4 stars. We've already been seeing this card make waves in Grade Fest in vocal teams, especially in Vocal Hokuda, and has almost completely changed the playstyle, which is really fascinating. Her support skills are Idol's Bond, Promise Recovery, Rest Boost, and Stamina Support, and she has 3 unique support skills. Unit Mastery SP reaching +6 at level 70, Tension Mastery SP Plus reaching +10 at level 80, and Vocal Mastery Stamina reaching +6 at level 75. Her support appeal does scale, starting at a Vocal 3.0 out of the box, becoming a 3.1 at level 60, and ending at a 3.5 at level 80. Her TFD idea is Dance, her Insight token for Grad is Dance, and her proficiencies and landing point are in Vocal and Appeal. Rinze's 1-star passive is a Vocal 50% up that requires the turn count to be 3 or earlier. This has a 20% chance to activate twice. Her 2-star passive is a Vocal 100% up and Memory Gauge 5% up that just requires 2+ active attention buffs. This has a 30% chance to activate twice. Her 3-star uncap is a Vocal +100, and her 4-star appeal is a Vocal 4.0 that raises your attention by 30% for 3 turns, and duets guaranteed with Rinze. Her event passive is a Vocal 30% up that requires Rinze on your team and has a 20% chance to activate twice. Rinze earns a double S+. Rinze is a frankly incredible card for vocal teams, and especially fits right at home in Hokuda, and potentially Nocturnal as well due to their need for attention up to force evasion odds, but maybe not as priority compared to Hokuda. Her 1-star passive already blows many supports out of the water at similar levels, and her 2-star passive is incredibly generous for a fairly simple setup. A killer vocal support at all stages of evolution, and a must for Vocal Hokuda. She has already changed the face of Hokuda teams, and it hasn't even been a week since she was released. She's really good, which is why I would say she is my first super high recommendation. She's a great card to just keep in the back pocket, especially if you fall into a lot of pieces. This Rinze by herself, well, not entirely by herself, but the power this Rinze brought is that alongside some of the better supports, she has made a team of 4 permanent produce SSRs super viable in Grade 7, which is something we haven't seen in years. This Rinze is really, really good. Lastly, we have Asahi. Asahi makes her debut as the first Fest Tours reward card to produce SR. However, despite this momentous occasion, this SR Asahi doesn't do anything particularly special. She's a very basic buffing unit who happens to buff 2 stats marginally for several turns, so she's more or less meant to help other Stray-like cards have buffs to eat, or for herself to eat with her memory appeal should you choose her as your center. The outfit is cute again, which is a plus for many, I'm sure. In terms of practicality, I think the only merit this Asahi has going for her is that she's a somewhat easy to get buffer Asahi in a sea of pure attacking types. I wouldn't personally use her unless you lack any other Asahi, but I would even believe Idle Road Asahi, once boosted a bit, does much better. Her roles are Buffer and Buff Eater, and you might as well farm for Asahi while she's here. Asahi's initial skill is a vocal 1.5 appeal that raises your vocal and dance by 5% for 5 turns and links into a vocal 1.5 appeal. The max version of this skill is a dance 2.5 appeal that raises your vocal and dance by 10% for 5 turns and links into a dance 1.5 appeal. The 1-star passive is a vocal 12% up that requires your mental to be 75% or higher and has a 40% chance to activate once. Her 2-star passive is a dance 24% up that requires the turn count to be 3 or earlier. This has a 40% chance to activate once. Her 3-star uncap has a plus 50 to dance, and her memory appeal, when maxed out, is a vocal dance visual 20% up for 3 turns that links into a dance maximum 3.0 appeal that removes all active vocal and dance buffs. This means you need a combined total of 4 to reach that 3.0 between vocal and dance buffs. For the support recommendations, Mei or Fuyuko act as your best case supports for the team, depending on if you take a dance or vocal route. New Rinze might actually be very powerful here, but it's worth experimenting with for sure. Natsuha, Mamimi, and Kiriko supply powerful dance options otherwise. If you need a secondary vocal option, the other limited Fuyuko is perfect alongside vocal Mei. Morning Glory acts as another fantastic vocal choice alongside limited vocal Natsuha. Amana and Toru continue to be great budget vocal choices as well. As a center, Asahi earns a B. It's okay, really. Assuming you can set up 2 vocal and 2 dance buffs, that's a free 3.0 dance appeal on turn 3. It's not a bad place to be. It definitely pales in comparison to many other memory appeals out there, but you can definitely do worse than this. As a unit, she gets a C-. She's every other PSR in the last few months in terms of passives, and the only merit her appeals have is that both in succession max out her memory appeal. Granted, that slows you down to a turn 4 memory, which is not exactly ideal for a 3-member team. I wouldn't worry too much about using this Asahi in particular, just focus on getting the costume unlocked one way or another. And that will do it for the video today. Thank you so much, as always, for watching. Next time we'll take a look at whatever banner comes next, and we also have the Fest Tours mini guide coming up here really soon. Just been trying to hammer out a few details, plus they've been patching the game a little bit as it's been going, so some of the notes I had are now completely invalid. So, kinda seeing if things stabilize in the next day or two, and then we'll go from there. Either way, thank you so much as always for watching. I've been Cho. Have a wonderful rest of your day.